Welcome to Darling Adventures. This is Jenny Soloria, and due to coronavirus, these cloth face masks are in high demand right now. I thought I'd create a really quick tutorial for you on how to easily create one for yourself at home. Since elastic is hard to come by these days, I've made this version with ties. I do have a second tutorial that has elastic straps if that's an option for you. All you're going to need for this tutorial is one piece of quilting cotton, 14 inches by 10 inches, and 4 pieces of that same fabric, 1 inch by 18 inches. Our first step will be to place a ½ inch fold on both short sides and press that with an iron. We're going to place a second ½ inch fold on both sides and again press. Now I'm going to stitch down the center of those folds to keep everything tidy. First, let me apologize for my wiggly and dingy ironing board. It's the kind that attaches to the back of a door, so it's not the most stable. Our first part in making each tie is to fold in half along the length and press. Be very careful with your fingers here. What this is going to do is create a guide for the next part, which is to fold one of the edges towards that center line that we created and press. And just simply repeat on the other side. Again, be very, very careful of your fingers, especially if you're using steam. And finally, fold it in half and press down the length. This will encase all the raw edges on the inside. Now we're going to stitch down the center of all of the ties. Mine wanted to wiggle as they went through, so I just had to pay very close attention, make sure I didn't go off the edges. Another option to create the ties is to use bias tape and just stitch down the center. Okay, so now we're going to place right sides together, and at almost the center point, I'm going to place one of the ties and pin it. Now I'm going to continue to pin across. And at this last point, I'm going to add a second tie. Repeat on the other side. We're just going to sew a ½ inch seam here. Anytime I come across one of the ties, I'm just going to reverse and reinforce it at that spot. Now, as I go along, I'm just making sure that all the ties are loose and free on the inside and not being caught up in one of these seams, except, of course, for the spots where I've pinned it. Now remove all the pins and trim loose threads, and we're going to turn it out. And tugging on those ties in the corners will help pull that out. And give that a press so everything is nice and neat. Just inside one of the ties, I'm going to place a pleat. And I'm going to do the same at the other end, making sure they're going in the same direction. And then I'll split the difference and add one in the middle. Here I'm just eyeballing, I didn't measure. On the other end, we're going to repeat what we just did. However, we need to make sure we're mirroring our folds so that the pleats are all headed in the same direction. Now once I have all of those pinned, I want to tidy up and actually press it. It'll make it easier to sew. So with all of my pleats pressed down, I'm going to, from the corners, come in about 2.5 inches and place a pin. That's going to be where I start and stop my edge stitching. So at the machine at the beginning, starting at one of those pins, I will do a little bit of a reverse to reinforce that, come down here to the corner, turn the corner, and head down these pleats. I'm calling this an edge stitch, but it's not really an edge stitch because those are usually closer to the edge. This is maybe an eighth or to a quarter of an inch from the edge because with all of that thickness and all of these pleats, I wanted to make sure I caught everything. Just be careful on these ends. There is a lot of thickness there with all those layers. And at the final pin, I'm just reversing to reinforce. And there you go. There's your almost finished mask. We have a slot there for any filters you want to add. And the final step is to take these little ends, since they're technically raw ends, we didn't finish those off at the machine. I'm just going to tie a little knot there. And if those straps are too long, that'll allow you to just quickly trim them off and then tie a new knot. I do have another version of this tutorial that utilizes elastic straps instead of the ties. If you do have access to elastic, this will save time for you so you don't have to create those ties. I tried to make this tutorial as simple as possible with the fewest pieces of fabric and the least amount of steps. I hope you find it easy to follow along. Thank you for watching and stay safe and stay healthy.